Just the message for today's session. Good morning, friends. Thank you for being here. Or good evening, depending upon when you're watching this. I hope that something in this message resonates for you, brings you some sense of peace and clarity. We've got number 38 today. 38 says, learn the fine art of acceptance. Well, I guess there's a need to accept something. Perhaps there's been a mindset of a little bit of denial or different desire that hasn't been matched or met. Let's see what the book says for card 38. Oh, what a weird day it is so far. I think I told you guys before, this is the first thing I do typically when I wake up. All right, let's see. This card presents itself to you today as the fifth and final stage of grief, representing completion, peace, and self-compassion. That which you refuse to accept continues to block the closure of a cycle and the beginning of a new journey. Before I continue reading, I have to address what I just read because it reminds me of a couple of things. The first thing it reminds me of is yesterday's session, which talked about blocking our own way, blocking our own blessing, blocking our own path, right? By way of denial or by way of avoiding the truth or by way of avoiding a really hard decision that just needs to be made. No matter how much you avoid it, it's still going to be there. It's still going to be true. It's still going to be, present. And then the other thing it reminds me of is the new moon. We're stepping into a new moon in a couple of days here, which represents a new beginning. It represents an opportunity to start fresh. But the thing about starting fresh, and especially if we go along with the moon cycles, is we have to let go of things. That's a part of the process. The only way to allow death, if you will, to come in, to revive the situation, to transform the experience, is to accept the circumstances, maybe make a really tough decision, face the facts, and surrender to what the experience is. There's something here that can't go along in the new journey with you. Pulling this card challenges your sixth sense to know that acceptance helps you to grow toward the next phase in your soul's journey. Your fifth sense to remain in that feeling of support from the earth, to stay grounded. Fourth sense to taste the garden filled with clover, daisies, hibiscus, lavender, mums, and sunflowers. Third sense to smell that fruity floral arrangement as you think back over your unique trajectory. Second sense to hear the calming vibration provided by a sound bowl. And your first sense to see the beauty that is birthed through growth. Peace is all that we ask for above all else, right? Why is it then that we sometimes make decisions, sometimes repetitive, that we know are affecting our peace in a negative way? From another perspective, we tend to avoid decision making because it is seemingly too painful. However, refusing to make a decision is ultimately choosing a side. Acceptance is an active choice that we make after having healed and come to terms with how our life has changed or needs to change. It does not mean that we have everything figured out, but it certainly comes with an overwhelming sense of peace. When our triggers don't trigger us like they used to, the tears don't fall as easily, and the opposition is less present, then we know we've made some progress. Time is a funny thing. Random ramble, but I guess it's necessary for the message as well. You know, we all view and experience time in very different ways. You know, for one person it may feel like a century, and for another it feels like 5 minutes had passed by. Now that's an extreme example, but it's a very realistic experience. And for some reason, it's an important part of the message today. Maybe there's a need to accept that time has passed. Maybe there's a need to accept that you have more time than you thought you did. Maybe there's a need to forgive oneself in that feeling of time having been wasted, right? Everything happens for a reason. You are where you are for a reason. You're watching this message today for a reason. And so you still have an opportunity. Our journal prompt for today, session 19. The choice remains mine to release what hinders and accept new opportunities. What am I choosing?